It's a pleasure to be here, and it's a pleasure to talk to the nuclear industry of Canada, the nuclear field. I'm amongst friends. I'm old enough, as I look. I've been in this business for 35 years, both regionally and nationally, and so I watched the demise of our nuclear industry here for medical isotopes with the shutdown of Chalk River, which was a devastating thing from my perspective, and a very ill thought out aspect of the Canadian government. So I'm so glad to see a resurgence. It really is exceptional to see. I also want to speak to Vincent and his predecessor, Ingrid Kaldowski, who was the radiopharmacist in Calgary. They are an exceptional organization, and as Vincent points out, they provide an immensely important service in Canada. I will get into this in my slides in a minute or two, just talking about collaboration, but they are exceedingly important. They've supported renal imaging in kids when we've had shortages of our radiopharmaceuticals, and now, as he says, they're providing a very staple agent, we use every day for thousands of patients in this country, and it's so vital. And thank you. So I will talk a little bit about our region, starting with my hometown of Nova Scotia, where I trained and have worked for that 35 years. We have a long and storied history with this. In terms of actual medical isotope production, that journey started at the turn of the century, the 21st century, when we realized the power that FDG PET was holding in terms of patient care, and so we started the process. It was a hard battle. Anybody who's done this sort of thing within the public system knows that resources are tight, and let me tell you, coming from Nova Scotia and the East Coast, we are largely have-nots, Newfoundland excluded, on and off, depending on the price of oil. But we've been challenged, but we got traction with our provincial government and our local foundation, and we're able to raise what not in today's dollars looks like a lot, but boy, oh boy, it was a lot of dollars in 2004 when we got the approval from Dr. John Ham's government to go ahead with this. So we actually started clinical clinical PET in 2008. We were supplied from Central Canada. It was a workable solution, but it was not a long-term solution. Andre Gagnon from Isologic, it was Pharmalogic in those days, but they did an exceptional job. I got to know the dangerous goods workers at the Halifax International Airport by their first name, so I could call to get our stuff released. It is a logistical nightmare, as you are well aware, and it is definitely something that we have to work on nationally to be able to make sure that we get timely and effective care for our patients. We went on from that to actually the MIRC, which is our cyclotron and radiopharmacy infrastructure, and got that going in 2010, working under a CTA until 2015. When we got our NOC, we had to go through a full rigorous Health Canada process. We weren't granted generic until the very end of our process, and that I'll come back to in a minute or two because it's a bone of contention for me. We do offer multiple therapies. I want to talk, when we talk about theranostics in this mold, and I am a nuclear medicine based physician. Nuclear medicine theranostics is actually coming on to 100 years old because iodine-131 is the original theranostic agent and has lived in the nuclear medicine departments for that 100 years, treating and imaging thyroid cancer. We started, and this is how I got to, well, first I started with strontium-89, which was the predecessor for Xofigo, actually a very effective radiopharmaceutical for bone pain in prostate and to a certain degree other cancers, but it never really got clinical traction. It's another one of our issues that we face in nuclear medicine is getting traction for our agents. Somebody yesterday referred to the Bexar and I've forgotten the other lymphoma treatment, which was a very effective, but again did not get clinical traction, and it's so we have to get out there and sell. It really is important. Xofigo took off nationally and has been a very great story. I know Lise fought a lot of battles because there is the whole burden of getting a new drug to patients in Canada. It's all well and good to build the thing, but then you have to get your various levels of approval, and even after getting approval, you've got to make sure that the jurisdictions are going to pay for it, and that is not an easy task, and I think the folks from Novartis are well aware of that, and others are going to be as we come forward. And now we're doing the various lutetium-based therapies out of our center. We have provided regional support during the growing periods. We still provide service to PEI, and we did, in fact, early on in the Zophigo story, we were doing more Newfoundlanders than Nova Scotians because it was provided remuneration in Newfoundland before it was in Nova Scotia. But all that to say, we've done a fair bit. We have a dedicated team, a lot of expertise. As Vincent talked about, one of the big jeopardies we face is human resources. It is a very specialized area. We're not producing enough of these individuals, and quite frankly, we're not remunerating them properly within the healthcare system either. It's a major jeopardy for us to be able to deliver this kind of care. No, I'll switch to New Brunswick. New Brunswick's got nuclear expertise, a little bit different. I know there's a few of their folks here in the audience, so I won't dare to try and say I know much. I was talking to them to prepare for this talk. They have the only functional power reactor east of Ontario at this point in time. It's beaten along really well and producing a lot of power. And because it is of the CANDU variety and the same as Bruce, and which is producing isotopes, they're carefully assessing the opportunity to potentially put that on stream as a regional production. And as I say, when I was talking to the folks, it's not just Atlantic Canada, which is a relatively small population base, but it's really the whole eastern seaboard. And of course, there's a fairly significant American population that lives in there. So it has the potential to be able to be a very viable backup and regional center in my estimation. They also have another program. This was very confusing to me, I will tell you, but I delved down on it. They also, in 2018, announced a partnership, and again, one of the speakers here yesterday was talking about this, with ARC for a small-scale reactors, concentrating on this technology for nuclear power generation, which to me is very exciting, but they also have a whole recipe book of various medical isotopes that they can produce with these things. And the potential benefits from this is being purpose-built, designed into it, rather than retrofitted, so the opportunities. And so that is under ongoing review within that province. Clinical PETs, they have clinical scanners in St. John and Moncton that date back to the times of us. They take delivery from central Canada still for their isotope. Newfoundland and Labrador, you heard Dr. Fleming here yesterday, the head there. Their project began in 2008. We from Halifax provided technical and moral support. It was led by a very fine nuclear medicine physician by the name of Peter Hollett. Very sadly died very unexpectedly and suddenly a couple of years ago. He had just literally entered retirement. It was sad. And Peter was a very distinguished, quiet, but authoritative person who managed to get a very significant funding commit, and they've built an amazing research and clinical center there. Both he and I were very, very passionate and very strongly opinionated that in order to be able to have access to these things for our patients, you have to have a regional center to be able to do it. And Newfoundland is particularly special because, you know, they call it the Rock, and it's not called the Rock because it is stuck out in the middle of the Atlantic. There's fog, there's hurricanes. I mean, there's major disruptions to supply chain logistics, and so having the abilities to do it yourself is vital for this sort of in-time delivery of care. And of course, they're moving into the theranostic room. PEI, our smallest neighbor with about 130,000 people, largely leverage the close relationships that the fixed link provides. Most of their patients for therapy come to us, and we kind of split the imaging between the PET centers in New Brunswick and Nova Scotia. So, I will, where are they? Come on, there we are. I'll go on to my crotchety old bit here, just a few little things. The jeopardies as I see it from a Nova Scotian but Canadian, and I'm speaking as someone who's been in this for quite a while. We really are a small, Vincent's talk was a beautiful segue for this. We are a small country with a small geographically dispersed population outside of the 50-mile radius that we're sitting in here now. And it is difficult, and I speak from the nuclear medicine field that I'm in, to get companies to to buy into that. And I give all the credit into the world to the companies that have and have been passionate about it, both the public companies such as CRC in Calgary, but some of the others like Isologic who recognize that and work diligently to help this. And really, I say to you as the folks who are coming to help us with the next generation, you got to think about this very, very carefully, because we're strapped for resources. We have to be creative. If there's one thing I learned in this whole process, and Peter as well, you have to be creative. We don't get big funding, and we have to do this. I, like Vincent, when I heard someone talking about Health Canada yesterday, and this is a hat again with talking from 20 years of liaising with Health Canada. The Health Canada regulations in our country with vis-a-vis nuclear medicine have been and continue to be, I think, a fairly significant impediment to what we do. To put in context, Vincent and his predecessor, they can have a Health Canada inspector come in who's never visited a nuclear-based facility before and face an audit that can shut them down. It's a horrible jeopardy to live in, and it's a jeopardy to the system. And I've spent a long time with Health Canada, and quite frankly, I find that since COVID, we've actually stepped backwards. They've detached themselves from us as an industry. They have become far more, their pontifications are to the larger drug market, and we are not a drug market. These are not drugs in the traditional sense, and to get them to recognize that. And so again, we at the CNIC, the Canadian Association of Nuclear Medicine, have, and I've worked with industry over this time, and I implore that we move forward again, because that is going to be a very significant jeopardy. And $50 million to develop a diagnostic agent, that's a ton of money, and our market is not going to pay that back for a long time. And so we need to try and think creatively about how we get these things into our patients, because they're just minute doses of very safe things. The therapeutic agents are different, but even those are unique and different than the horrible drugs that we feed patients for cancer. We have to think about those things. So, in closing, because I see my time, I want to thank you again, and I say to you that nuclear medicine and nuclear medicine physicians are a very integral part of this. Our Royal College certification, we are the doctors who are certified by the licensing Canadian licensing agent to deal with open source isotopes, which is what we're talking about here. The difference between Xofigo and iodine versus, say, cobalt, which is a contained thing, is very different in the eyes of the regulators and the certifying bodies. Thank you and have a great day.